I had a lovely chat with a person who has been collecting Infocom memorabilia and related to Infocom memorabilia for many decades, and his resultant collection is now something in his hands that he's thinking should be passed on in some way. His initial eBay auction was to sell it for $155,000. It didn't sell, but he's held it for about a year, and I had an opportunity to talk to him on the phone about both his collection and some other more lofty philosophical ideas on what it even means to collect software and collect things from your life and then put a monetary value on it. There's a lot down there, and at the bottom, there's a brass lantern. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Daniel Boyd, Jeff Atwood, and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. It's not overly important what his name is or where he is. I'll just describe the photograph of his collection that went on eBay and which was brought to my attention, setting all of this in motion. It's of a cabinet that's clearly either in a basement or the side of a dining room, and in the cabinet are all of the gray boxes of Infocom, along with some of the earlier bagged or special packaging versions, and additional feelies and buttons from the Zork users group, and a sword, and GitLamp, my documentary, a coin from GitLamp, and even the lantern that appears on it. Not the same lantern that's still in my possession, but he went out and found another one, the same as a Zork 1 license plate, which he tells me was his for a while. In fact, there are dozens and dozens of items in this collection that he's selling. They represent a version of everything Infocom, and he's put it together with the careful curation of a reliquary, of a place of display that tells you a story as you go through it. He's got everything that Infocom did in one form or another, from early Zork work all the way through to Cornerstone and Journey and the Lost Treasures of Infocom. The whole shebang is there. You've probably seen other auctions or collections like this. Just think of somebody starting at one end of a lineage of products, going all the way to the last dregs before things shut down. I can't put it any more clearly than that. The whole collection fits in a space the size of a regular refrigerator, and looking at his layout, there are two main thoughts that come to mind. The first one is, he was careful. He bought a lot of shrink-wrapped software, and it's stored that way, and he also made it a point of finding artifacts that were reminiscent of Infocom products and added them in too. And the other part of all this is that, ultimately, he was doing it not towards any particular end for years, just collecting them, and this is his way, by putting it up for sale, of giving it a life beyond him. He tells me that he knows his family is aware that this is important to him, but is it something they want to deal with and have to handle things being pieced out or going in different directions? That should all be his choice. It is, after all, much easier to make choices than have grieving family members or friends try to discern from your writings and your statements and half-forgotten conversations exactly what you wanted to do. There's no question that it's better to make your choices yourself than somebody trying to second-guess your memory. But of course, he doesn't want somebody to take this box or that box to complete some other collection. He thinks of it as a whole, maybe separating things out by artifacts versus software, but ultimately thinking of it less as a one or two piece collection or a pile of software, but as a work of art in itself. I don't think he would use the word art, but I do. It is an art to put together a collection of curated materials and turn them into an item that tells its own story. It is easy enough, and it's a fun skill to hold up a single piece of something and tell a whole legend around it, a lore about what it was from and where it was going and how it was found and what dreams may come from owning it or just looking at it. But I do honestly feel that it's better to have the story of its own. Somebody else who did this was Stephen Moretsky. When I interviewed him for GitLamp, he provided access to these wonderful notebooks, these spiral-bound evidence of what Infocom was, and he let me scan them. And if you start at the beginning and move all the way to the end, there will often be an incredible story of the development of a piece of literature. Everything from the first dram of thinking and what kind of game are we going to do, through to articles or inspirations, along with selected emails or writings about what to go for in the new game, until traipsing through the initial art sketches of the packaging and other externalities, until we finally get to the reviews, the letters, the comments, the victory lap, in other words. He has one for every game he made for Infocom. It was an absolute honor to scan these thousands of pages, and they stand as one of the rare examples of being able to see a 1980s era video game come to life. Such it is with this final pile of software. But we quickly drifted into the philosophy behind all of this. Why do we collect? What is the purpose of a collection? What represents a meaningful number to put on it? Unfortunately, the closest I could do for him, and it was only semi-satisfying, was my position around certain domain names. I own a few domain names, and sometimes people have tried to buy some from me, and I will quote a price. And my price, I tell him, is a number that, no matter what happens to that domain name afterwards, I know that I was able to affect my life with something positive. If you sit around not willing to sell something for $50 because you think somebody is going to get $500 for it, you're never going to be happy. If you never sell it for $500, maybe that's best. If you honestly think that's what it will take for you to feel you got a fair shake. But I'll tell you, somebody who has just paid money for an item is under an incredible amount of pressure and motivation to make as much of a profit from selling it to the next team as you would expect. It's just the nature of these things. So you quote a price, and that price can let you pay off a parent's mortgage or take a trip you've always wanted to take, to fulfill a dream, to have something in your life that is not a hole in it, but is something that you occasionally dream about, and you go and make that dream real. If you have done that, then what does it matter what the object was with you versus what it becomes? You, a real living person, have moved on. I'm not sure how much of that landed, but it's what people have to do when they start to look at products. And bear in mind, these are all products and what their life will be outside of the original owner. As time has gone on, there's been more and more financialization of vintage computer material, and I try to pride myself on not paying prices for items and going after items that people think are worthless, but then turn out to have a special value all their own. One donor sent along digitization of piles of faxes in the UK, just plenty of spam faxes from the early 2000s. What a beautiful, valueless, yet also priceless part of UK history. Old air checks of radio shows, digitizing brochures of vacation spots, these are both of an economic value and of no economic value whatsoever, but filled potentially with a very sentimental one. One where you look back and feel in your heart where it came from. The reaching across of years, the understanding of time changed, and a feeling that you were a link in a chain instead of an anchor holding things safe beneath the sea. I told him what I think many people know. When it came to Get Lamp, it was not so much about text adventures as about the nature of authors and their audience, but it was also something else, and that was that having finished the BBS documentary, I was filled with a sense that I had trained myself, like a person trains a set of muscles, to put together a documentary about what would be a boring, geeky, niche subject, and being able, the best I could, to turn it into something watchable, viewable, feeling like it was something that you could get through and come away with something of value. And I aimed it on text adventures because my belief in 2007 was that we were long past where these were going to get their due, and we were going to start losing people. And I was right. It's just the nature of time. But I looked at my skills and my learned abilities, and I saw them for what they were, tools that should be used for some sort of good. And I aimed them at a subject, at a place where they mattered. My hope is that others who have developed a talent, who have developed an ability, and maybe made their fortune, or maybe just earned their abilities, will turn and ask themselves the same vital question that I did. Is there something out there, some part of the world, some part of history, some effort to which my skills, these learned but transient skills, will make the world a better place if I apply them? And then I say, better get to work. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It. Thanks to James Bekoyanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Joey Mink, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have supported me and have helped me get out of debt. I have no idea where these items will end up. It is really his right to decide where their home is and how much it will help him. I've checked. There's nothing in there the world is going to miss out